Welcome to Real Estate Focus. My name is Cavallaro. Our topic today is home inspection. With me here today are Paul Cavallaro and John Auger from Something Broken Home Inspection. Paul and John are both home inspectors from the Braintree areas, and they have a number of years of experiences to perform home inspections. And they are here with me to share insightful information with the viewers. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here, Calvin.
Welcome, Paul.
How are
Welcome,
you?
John. Thank you. Fine, thank you. Let's have a good show. Now, in a normal real estate transaction, when the buyer has an accepted offer, the buyer will contact the home inspectors and schedule the home inspection at their own expense. And that's when the home inspectors come into the picture. Now, having said that, when the home buyer contact the home inspector, what is your duty as a home inspector?
The duties of the home inspector are pretty clear. The buyer is hiring us and we work directly for the buyer. And our duties are to identify the components of the house, the structure of the house, systems in the house, heating, if there's air conditioning, the electrical system, the plumbing system. We're there to identify everything for the buyer. And we don't just point out the bad things of the house, we also point out good things in the house. Hopefully there is no bad things in the house, but sometimes there are. We start on the outside, we go from the ground to the top of the house. We check the foundation, siding, windows, doors, overhangs, roof, chimneys, ventilation on the roof. Very thorough, the electrical service that comes into the building, decks, porches, the condition of them all. Excuse me, sometimes we have to go under the decks if it's necessary. And then we go into the house, and inside the house, we usually head for the basement. That's where a lot of the things happen in a house. The heating system is there, electrical, and we run the heat. If it's summertime, we'll also run air conditioning if it's present. We take the electrical panel cover off and check the wiring inside the panel. We check the plumbing, the piping, the drains. There's quite a bit to a home inspection. A typical home inspection takes a couple of hours, and we are very thorough at it, and we've been doing it for a while. The heating system, we run it up, and in some heating systems, if it's hot air, we explain to the buyer the good points. If there's a filter that has to be changed, to have it changed. If it's an oil furnace, we recommend they get a service contract. So we're just giving advice as well. If we do find something wrong, we spend as much time as needed to go over what we found, whether it's maybe some damaged wood, maybe something settled. But we take our time with the customer and we spend all the time they need to understand what the house is all about. It's also good for the home buyer to be there. Well, I'm kind of jumping a question,
Sure.
It's good for the home buyer to be there because it also gives them a couple of hours in the home that they're going to be living in soon. And they can walk around freely and check out rooms and the structure of the house as well, as long as we're going through it.
Great. And John, would you like to share something as well?
Sure. It's not necessary for the buyer to be there. We have done many inspections with just the brokers and ourselves there. Mm-hmm. It's always good to have them there, so if we do come across something that they should be aware of, we can point it out to them. We can take the time to talk to them about it, explain certain things. And if they have questions, we're there to help them with the questions and go over things with them. If the buyer is not there, then a lot of times we take in fax or email the inspection report to them, and then we talk to them on the phone in the evening, and we go over things. And a lot of times they do have a lot of questions. So it is good if they are there to go over things with them.
Right, and it is important for them to be there as well because during the home inspection, number one, as you mentioned, they can ask questions. Number two, they can preview any problems that were found during home inspection, and so that they can expect to negotiate with any repairs that were found from the home inspection with the seller. And also, they also be familiar with the condition of the home as well. So it is important for the buyer to be there. It's not just the home inspector and their brokers, if you will. And having said that, in a normal home inspection, and then of course it depends on what type of properties. It ranges between single family, two family, and 3 to 4
Multifamily, yeah.
families. Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
And now, if you can just provide a general view in terms of how long would it take for a single family and two family, and it goes up to 3 to 4 family. How long would it take in a normal procedure, if you will?
A typical single family with 3 bedrooms and maybe a bath, 2 bathrooms, and it would take about 2 hours. Typically, it's 2 hours, give or take. It could go 2.5 hours. Typically, it's not less than that. 2 hours is a good number for the inspection. There is a lot to cover, and we write up a report while we're doing it. And like I said, we're very thorough, and we take a lot of time. We don't rush through it. There is a system to a home inspection where, like I said at the beginning, we start on the outside, go around the outside, check the roof, and then go into the basement. And in the basement, we don't just say jump to the heating system. We check the sills, the timbers, the joists, the subfloors, anything that we can see, we check thoroughly. And this all takes time, and you can't rush it. You have to take your time and identify any issues that are present, and point out good things at the same time as well, making the buyer comfortable with their purchase. And that's the whole point of the home inspection, is for the buyer's peace of mind.
Right. Well, good to know. And John, would like to add something to it. When you do when you perform the home inspection for, let's say, 3 to 4 families, I mean, how long would it take, and what did you look for if you would have performed an inspection for a large piece of property, like 3 to 4 family?
A 3 to 4 family house would probably take about 3.5 hours to do, because naturally you have triple items to check. You have the 2 or 3 different heating systems and electricals, and we don't skip around. We go right through all 3 floors. And if there's air conditioning there, if it's in the summertime, we do check it. If it's winter time, we just check the heating systems, explain things to the buyers, and we go through electrical systems. We take the boxes apart, we take a look at it, make sure the wiring is okay, and there are no serious problems with that. We check the plumbing, we check the sills, we check the beams, the supports, everything underneath the house we check. And it normally takes about 3 to 3.5 hours. It all depends on how large the property is.
Right, right. It depends on the layout as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It also depends if you do find a lot of problems and you have a lot of writing to do, and you talk and you stop and you talk to the people and explain the issues to them.
Great. Yeah. So it sounds like it's very insightful. Number one. Number two is a very thorough inspection as well.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So hopefully by the end of the inspection, the buyer will know the property very well.
Right.
Hopefully. Yeah.
They should.
More than the seller, right?
They should.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in terms of for the buyers to get the report, should the buyer get the report overnight, on the same day, or within 48 hours? How long would it take for the buyer to get the report?
That varies with different inspectors. Some use computers, some don't. We use a written report, or checklist written report. So the buyer would, at the end of our inspection, the report is done, and we hand the buyer the report along with some other vital information for them about the house. And other inspectors, it might be later that day, or maybe overnight the next morning through email or the mail. But the way we do it, the report is done at the end of the inspection.
Right. And on the same note on the report, does it have any warranty in terms of after the buyer got the report, then can they call you, during the transaction until the transaction closes? And thereafter, I mean, do you have a warranty on in terms of answering questions, for the buyer and stuff like that?
I always tell the buyer at the end of the inspection that the inspection never ends. If they have any questions, even after they own the house and they're living there and they have a maintenance issue, to please contact me. And through email, it doesn't even take a phone call, and sometimes email is a little more specific that way. But we're more than happy to go over any part of the house at any time with a buyer.
Right. Well, good to know. Would you like to add anything to it, John?
Well, we have done that in many occasions. You know, we've had it 2-3 weeks later when people have called us up and asking us a certain question about a certain item. And we take all the time necessary. If we have to, we pull out the report and go over it, because we do a lot of inspections, so you don't always have everything fresh in your memory. So a lot of times we'll pull out the report and we'll go over the whole report with them if we have to.
And it is a good way, you know, to provide customer care and also,
Yes.
you know, I mean, answer the questions that they may have.
Buying a
Because-
house is a big expense,
It
and
is.
we try to ease people's mind. And if they have any questions at all, we're always there to answer the questions. So.
It's the value of the service we provide.
Right.
Yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, it's good to know. So now, in a lot of instances where a home inspection could be good, or a home inspection could be bad. In this case, with a bad home inspection could be a failed home inspection. So in this case, I mean, what caused a home inspection to be failed?
I like that term a lot, failed home inspection. Homes don't actually fail. The inspector doesn't actually fail the house.
Right.
What it comes down to is if we find, let's say, extensive termite damage, where a lot of work has to be done to fix the house, and the person selling the house says, nope, the house is sold as is, so it's on the buyer side to buy the house and do all the repairs. They may not want to do that. They may look at the amount of damage, they have to bring in a contractor, have it evaluated, get an estimate, and they may decide at that point that this is more than I want to get involved with in this house, and they may just say, we're not going to buy the house and move on. So I always have to chuckle when somebody says, you know, did you fail the house? You know, did the house pass or fail? They all kind of pass, it's just some need a little more work than people are willing to put into. Most buyers, as they walk through the house, they've pretty much made a decision. I'm going to remodel the kitchen, I'm going to remodel the bathroom, I'm going to have the hardwood floors sanded. They've kind of made that decision even before the inspection. But the inspection gives them a chance to walk around, like I said earlier, and evaluate the house even better, you know, for their needs, and put a list together of things that they'd like to prioritize.
So basically, you know, the home inspector doesn't fail the house, but the house fail itself.
Itself, basically, yeah. There's that word again.
Right. Okay. And John, I mean, when you do the home inspection, during home inspection, if you found if the floors settle, or perhaps, you know, I mean, damage or something like that, what caused the floors to settle?
Normally, when you see floors settled, it's in an older building. Around where the chimney is, they have supports that go around that, and sometimes they get weak and they come down a little bit. Sometimes the fasteners give away, and the floors will settle, or they'll squeak a little bit. We've gone into many older homes when they've already noticed that the floors have settled, and what they've done is they've put added supports in. And now, basically, if you see the floor that's already settled, there's really not too much you can do with it, because a lot of times if you start to level the floors off, you're going to crack the walls, the ceilings, the doors. So a lot of times it's good to just, you know, leave it the way it is.
Right.
And believe it or not, a lot of people sometimes when they're buying older homes, that's what they want. They want the floors to, you know, that's what they're looking for.
Okay.
And-
And so, sorry, me
That's
to
okay.
cut you in. So, for floor settlements, I mean, the reason that the floor settle is because the movement of the foundation. Is that right?
Not necessarily the
No? Okay.
foundation. It's the wood structure.
Okay.
Okay, sometimes, you know, the fasteners give way, the nails are 70, 80 years old, they start to rot away and they settle down. And a lot of times you'll see brackets installed, and that's for added support.
So a lot of times, I mean, especially first-time home buyers, and they saw the floor settle, and they start to question and ask their realtor, I mean, why the floor settle? And basically, from my experiences, is that I usually explain to them is that, you know, when the floor settle, it doesn't mean it's going to settle again, because it depends on when the floor was
Right.
settled. If the floors were to settle, let's say 20 years ago,
Right.
then which means that the foundation is pretty much stabilized,
Mhm.
and the chances are the floor may not settle again. Is that fact right?
Yeah, that's pretty close. In the city of Quincy, for instance, a typical house in Quincy is about 100 years old. Settling started 100 years ago. When settling becomes an issue is if it's still going on today. If it, like Kelvin said, if it happened 20 years ago, something happened in the house, something twisted, the wood settled, maybe there was a piano sitting in that living room, and it was too much weight in the corner. But as time goes on, that shouldn't keep happening. It gets to a point, a level, and then stays there. If it keeps settling, then there could be a structural problem with the house at that point.
Right. Okay. Well, good. And now this happened with newer houses, older houses, and I'm talking about the foundation walls.
Sure.
Now, there are certain direction of cracks, if you will. There are horizontal cracks, and there are vertical cracks. And so, for a novice buyer, they were freaked out because
Right.
when they see cracks, they instantly thought that the cracks are structural damages.
Right.
But it all depends. The
They're not
cracks are
all.
not necessary, right?
No.
So if you could please explain to the viewers what are the differences between vertical cracks versus horizontal cracks?
Vertical cracks are very common. They usually develop in the first 5 years of a foundation being poured, and it is very common.
Right.
And it's not the end of the world to have a crack in your foundation. A lot of times we recommend that you have it sealed, and the main reason to have it sealed is so you don't get any moisture coming into the basement. Normally, once it's sealed, that's the end of the problem. Horizontal cracks, again, that's a different situation. That means you have some pressure, whether it's from water or from soil, and that should be addressed. If we see that, we do recommend that you call in a licensed professional to examine it and go over it and give you an estimate on just what it's going to take to fix it.
So let's stay on the same note about cracks. Now, cracks doesn't necessarily mean that the house is in a flood zone or not.
No.
It doesn't.
No, it does not.
Okay.
No.
Or
No.
sitting on clay or not.
No.
Okay. It depends on the movement of the
Yes.
foundation and how that foundation was being built.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how it was built. Okay. So it could be a different factors, but the most common crack is the movement of the foundation.
Right.
And how the foundation was being built. Okay, so great. And now, especially in Massachusetts or throughout New England areas, I mean, most houses have termites. So there are different termites. So if you could share different termites and their damages as well, and the pictures that will depict different damages in floor joists, wood planks, or even siding and stuff like that.
Siding, sills,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you could explain in terms of what kind of damages do you see based on the pictures on the screen?
Sure. The top right picture on the screen is the sill inside the house, the carrying timber in the sill, and a post, and it looks like a pressure-treated post. The termites don't like the pressure-treated wood. They like regular wood. And they come in two different ways. Sometimes they come in from the outside up the foundation, and other times they come in through cracks in the floor and where the floor meets the foundation. They come in through there, and they use mud tunnels. They're not visible typically. They have a little tunnel up the wall, a little line, or sometimes a little thicker than others, and they come and go to work every day. Termites are everywhere. They're in the trees, they're in the ground around us. You just don't want them in your house. Once they're found, like the picture on the right, when you see it in the baseboard like that, that is a baseboard in a house. When you see it visually in a baseboard like that, that means they're in the walls, and there's probably quite a bit of damage behind that wall. The outside siding, on the bottom picture, you can see there's a lot of damage there, and they get into the wood, And again, you don't see them. They're kind of sneaky about that. They go up in between the wood, in the wood, and then all of a sudden the wood starts to decay and fall apart because there's no substance left. They've eaten away at it all. Termites can be controlled fairly easily. A termite company can come out and they can treat the ground. They put termite traps in the ground, or they inject poison into the ground all the way around the house, and they can be treated very well. The problem is the damage they left behind once they've been found. If it's extensive and structural, it needs to be repaired. In the course of inspections, we see termite damage fairly often, and sometimes it's superficial. There's no structural damage. Again, we explain to the buyer that what we see, we use a rod to poke at the sills and at the damaged areas, and if they're solid, there really isn't anything to be done. And again, it's a peace of mind issue. If they think that they can't live in a house that has any form of termite damage, then that wood needs to be repaired. Other houses sell over and over again with minor damage that's, again, not structural. And people can be comfortable with that.
Fantastic. So, John, since Paul just explained the termite damages, based on your experience, what kind of termites have you seen often, if you will, in basements? What are the difference between termites versus carpenter ants, wood insects?
Mm-hmm.
Carpenter ants are a completely different animal altogether. They can cause just as much damage as the termites. Normally, you'll see the termites swarm in the springtime, and I have seen them when you can, when they're flying in the air, and then they find a structure that they want to get into, and they go right to it. And like Paul was saying, you know, they're in the ground, or they just get into the wood itself. And it's not the end of the world if you have termites, because the termites can be treated very easily. There's licensed professionals around that can come in, treat the ground, treat the structure, and if they've done serious damage to the structure, then you should have it repaired. If not, like Paul says, sometimes you can see it on a beam, but the beam is solid. And like I said, as long as you have it treated, there shouldn't be a problem with it.
Right. So, so buyers shouldn't be freaking out
No.
when
No,
they
they
heard
really
about
shouldn't.
termite damage.
No.
So
No.
yeah.
Damage can be repaired and the termites can be chased away.
Okay. Good. So, and in other words, that they are unwelcome guests, if you will.
That's not to say it doesn't freak the buyers out. And
Okay.
They're not going to buy this house.
Right.
That happens over and over again.
And you know, it depends on how you educate them.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So
And how much they're willing to put up with, or
Right.
put into the house. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So okay. So great. And this is about air ventilation. Why is it important to have proper air ventilation in the basement?
Basements are subject to dampness because they're below ground typically, and the concrete holds moisture. And it is good to have circulation. In the wintertime, you don't want too much because if the heat's on, it's going to dry the basement out. The summertime, it's more important, whether you open windows or have a dehumidifier in the basement, to deal with that dampness that might be present. You don't want the dampness. It can lead to mold issues, health issues down the road if the mold is not even flourished. Even you can have breathing problems if you're subject to asthma or something like that.
Great. And in the bathrooms, I mean, why is it important to install an exhaust fan, John?
Well, basically for the same reason. It gets the moisture out. If you take a shower and it gets all steamed up, you know, if that air isn't ventilated out, then over time you will get staining on your walls, you will get mold on the walls and on the tile, and it could come to a problem later on. So it's always good to have the ventilation fan. It's actually code that you have it in all bathrooms now.
Right. So that's the new requirement.
Oh yes. Well, it's not a new requirement. It's always been there.
Oh, it's always been there.
It's always
okay,
been there.
Good. So
Bathrooms have to have a fan or a window.
I see.
That's always been a requirement.
Okay. Good. Good to know. And what is Title V?
Title V is deals with septic systems only. And the Title V inspection is, we don't perform that, but there are other inspectors who do. And the inspection it qualifies the condition of the septic system and how well it's working. And it has to meet a certain level of service, otherwise that fails. As opposed to a home inspection, the septic system can actually fail. And it fails, and you'd be required to put in a new system. And typically, that's the seller's responsibility in most cases. They do have to provide the Tele 5. You can't pass papers, as you know,
You're right,
without
right.
that paperwork done.
Yeah. And I think I'm talking about just Massachusetts. A lot of places where you see septic tanks or Title 5 certificate, I don't know, inspection or something like that, happening in suburban areas, right? Not in the cities.
Not in the city, typically. Yeah, very
Big
rarely.
towns.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, and the septic tank usually plays in either the front yard or the backyard.
Right.
Right.
Okay. And how deep is it?
The tank itself is not very deep. The
Is it like 5 feet?
No, the top of the tank, it could be right under the surface of the ground.
Wow.
It
I see.
could be a couple of feet deep max, because you have to get access to that tank. They have to
Right.
be pumped out
I see.
periodically.
Right.
So you have to be able to get at it. And the leach field off of the tank, that could be 3, 4, 5 feet deep
I see.
in the ground. Yeah.
Okay. And nowadays, some buyers asking for radon gas testing inspection. What kind of devices do you use? And if you can show the graph in terms of the devices that most inspectors will use
Sure.
in Massachusetts. So here they are.
We use the picture on the bottom is a double canister system, and that's the type that we use. And we highly recommend it to all of our customers to have the radon. In fact, we give a free radon test with every home inspection, just the way we do it. Most inspectors charge for it. We do that. And we use the bottom canisters, and the picture on the top is an electronic version of a radon test. The bottom canisters, there's a good and bad, I guess. It's a speed-wise. The bottom canisters are a 48 to 96 hour test where they have to be exposed open in the basement. And the electronic test is a 24-hour test, and you get your results right then and there, where the canisters have to be mailed to a laboratory. The laboratory has to process it. So you could be looking at upwards of 5 days to get the results on that test. With the electronic test, you can actually have the next afternoon in most cases, and you get a printout report of it.
Right. And so, John, what is the acceptable level?
4.0 is the general level that they use. Anything above 4.0, you have to have a mediation system put in. Anything below that, you're fine.
And who is responsible to put in the mitigation system?
Normally, it's the homeowner that puts that in. Okay. All that is a series of PVC pipes that start in the basement and goes through the foundation and then goes up to the roof. It has a low voltage fan or a blower on the inside or the outside, and there's a little dial there it'll have a blue water level that'll show what the level is, so you can get down into the basement at any time and take a look at the level, so you can see what the gas is at that particular time.
Okay, quickly, how do you perform sewer line inspection? And if you can please show the graph.
Sure.
Just share a general view in terms of how is it being performed. So.
The picture on the left there is we don't actually do sewer line inspections. It's another certification, and there are companies that do that. And a lot of towns and cities actually provide the service to residents free of charge if there's a problem. But the person on the picture there, what he's doing is he has a monitor in front of him and a reel of cable, and at the end of that cable he's feeding down the sewer line is a camera. So on the picture on the right, you can see what the camera is seeing. It's going through the pipe, it's seeing some roots, maybe cracks, there's water sitting in the pipe, and that's what they look for when they do the inspection. What's obstructing the pipe or blocking it? And in older cast iron pipes, they rust, they rot out, so the roots start getting in. In very older houses, there might be clay pipes, and the clay pipes crack and crush. But again, they start holding water, toilets don't flush properly, sinks don't drain, things back up a little bit, and it's messy.
Messy, that's the name.
Messy.
Yeah, that's the name of the inspection. So yeah, well, I want to thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And,
You're welcome.
It was a
and
pleasure
I
to be
believe-
here.
Thank you for being here. And it's very insightful information. Having said that, before you entering into signing the purchase and sale, please making sure you perform a thorough and detailed home inspection, because when you perform a thorough home inspection and be familiar with the condition of the property, it will give you a peace of mind, including the condition of the roof, structural integrity, plumbing, heating, electrical, termites, and furnace or heating system, if you will. Just to name a few, because after all, it is your largest investment. So I want to thank you for watching. See you next time.